Good afternoon and welcome to Pat Can Cook. I have a few little techniques that I think will help you. And to start off, I'm going to show you how I cut an onion. So I always cut the ends off, of course, and try to slide down the sides, leaving a little bit of onion skin on there so that you have a tear, giving you the ability to just grab that hard shell and pull this off. Which usually works pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to shove that aside here. Now, I learned how to cut an onion a long time ago from a chef, and it has really come in handy for me. So you have a top and a bottom that you've cut. You cut them in half. And then, depending on how thin your slices are this way, will be your determination of how large the pieces are. So you could actually, cut really large pieces, or you can make minced onions very easily by just cutting really thin slivers all across, which we're not going to do that. We're going to do somewhere in between. Okay, so I always cut into the onion, and I hold the pieces with my left hand kind of tight. I kind of squeeze that so that these pieces that you're cutting don't slide out on you. Okay, so I hold my finger down on the previous slice. Turn it the other way. And you're going to squeeze that whole section there so it's pretty tight so that these slices, like I said, don't pop out on you. Alright, so you can make these slices as little or as big as you want, but as you can see, it makes very uniform pieces, okay? Very small little squares, which is what I want for this dish, small. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to squeeze my pieces. Now I take what's left and flip it over, and then I cut little squares into that. So you have the same size pieces of onion. I can remember a couple years ago on one of Gordon Ramsay's shows where one of the challenges was cutting a bowl of onions, and they had to be the exact same size throughout the bowl. And some people did not know this technique. So I'm here to show you. And like I said, you can have as small of minced pieces as you want, or as large of pieces as you want. But this allows you to cut your pieces all exactly the same size. And they just all come apart in little pieces of onion. Okay, so we're going to put this in our pan, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So I'm putting some coconut oil. As you can see, coconut oil is white. It almost looks like Crisco, but it isn't Crisco. I'm mixing my coconut oil with my olive oil. And the reason I do that is because olive oil cannot withstand high heat, but coconut oil can. So that's a teaspoon. I guess I put probably 3 or 4 teaspoons in there. Excuse me. And I'm also going to put some olive oil in here. That's probably a 1/4 of a cup, maybe a 1/3 of a cup. And I'm going to let this melt. I've turned my burner on medium-high. I'm going to let this melt down. As you can see, it's starting to do that. As soon as that's melted, I'm going to start sauteing my onions. I've explained in a couple of my other videos that I don't like using corn oil. Corn oil is just really bad for you. You might want to Google that. So again, I use a mixture of coconut oil and olive oil. Melt that around. It's almost ready, so I'm going to go ahead and put my onions in. And I have some basic spices that I use about on everything that I cook with. One is granulated garlic, not garlic salt. Put a little bit of that in there. A little pinch of pepper. Today I'm not going to use my seasoned salt. I'm going to use my sea salt though. That's probably a good tablespoon worth. And we're going to saute this. I sometimes use fresh garlic, but I like to buy the minced garlic too. It's so much faster and easier, and I really like the garlic juice that comes in it. And I like a lot of garlic, so you can cut this back for yourself. I make this for my friends and family, and people don't usually even know that I have this much garlic in it. So anyway, this is probably a tablespoon, because that's a teaspoon, and 3 teaspoons equals a tablespoon. So I'm going to put that in there. And since my jar is almost empty and most of it is mostly juice, I'm going to go ahead and put my juice in there. Okay. And again, my heat is on medium. I'm going to stir this around. I'm going to let those saute and become transparent. So I'll come back in a few minutes. As you can see, the onions are caramelizing. Turning a nice brown color. It's now time for me to put in my hamburger. I'd say that's about a pound. And we want to just brown this hamburger until it is cooked all the way through and no more pink is showing. And of course, we're going to mix our onions into the hamburger. And this just smells so good. I wish you could smell it on the video. And you want to chop this up a little bit so that you don't have really big, huge chunks of hamburger in your sauce. I don't like to pound it to death, but I don't like big old chunks in there. So we're just going to keep browning this until it is cooked all the way through. And then we're going to add some more spices and the tomato products that I like to use. And we'll go from there. So I will be back shortly. Okay, starting to cook very well now. Starting to stick a little bit, which is good. This is a pretty lean hamburger. You'll see there isn't a lot of grease in here, which I like. big pieces. Just kind of chop them up a little bit when you see them. Okay. And we're going to add our tomatoes. I use, instead of tomato sauce, which is just plain old tomato sauce, I like to use pizza sauce, or pasta sauce, excuse me. And I just use the traditional Hunt's brand. There you go. I put a large can of Hunt's pasta sauce in there. I use a large can of crushed tomatoes. And you can use just plain old tomato sauce instead of pasta sauce, but to me it has a little bit more flavor to it. And then I use a large can of diced tomatoes. And diced tomatoes, or whole tomatoes, have a lot of water in the can. So I like to put a little bit of tomato paste also. Now when I use tomato paste, I open the top and the bottom, and I take one of them off. Wipe the lid on the bottom there. And then the other one, I just shove, and you got to make sure it's loose though. Take the other one and just shove your tomato sauce all the way through, like that. Wipe the can off. And then you have a pretty clean swoop out of the can. There's a little bit in there I'll dig out, but for the most part, you don't have to dig it all out and get it out of the creases and all that. So I'll go ahead and get the rest of that out of there. Just go around in a circle and it loosens it all up. Okay. I'm going to smash the tomato paste. And like I said, the only reason I put a little tomato paste in there is because the diced tomatoes, or even the whole tomatoes, if you're going to use whole tomatoes and smash them up, it tends to have a lot of water in the can. So I mix this up real good. And also I use a little bit of tomato paste because I like to add a little red wine to my sauce, and that makes it watery as well. So the tomato paste tends to thicken your sauce. So you can use any kind of red wine that you want. This is a Cabernet, just a cheap cab. And I'm going to put probably 1/3 cup. Put that in there. Stir that around. Now, it is always better to use fresh herbs, but I don't always have fresh herbs. I grow fresh herbs in the summer. But for today's purposes, I'm just going to use dried basil, dried oregano, and some fennel. So I guess that's about 2 tablespoons of basil. And I'm going to smash it up a little bit before I put it in my dish. And also, you can heat your spices on the stove if you want. It pulls the oils out of, I'm going to put a little bit more, another tablespoon. So that's about 3 tablespoons of basil there. I'm going to smash it up, make it small. Like I said, you can heat it on the stove and it pulls the oils out. Makes it, your dried herbs a little bit more flavorful. Okay, I'm going to use, that's about 1 tablespoon of oregano. And that too, I'm going to smash. And then fennel is a very strong spice, so we're not going to use a ton of fennel. We're just going to use probably that's probably a fourth of a teaspoon. Put some fennel seeds in there. Fennel's also good for the women. It's a good natural source of estrogen, in case you didn't know that. Okay, we're going to stir that around. I'm going to use a little bit more sea salt. That's probably a teaspoon and a half. And I'll probably taste it after it's cooked for about an hour. See if it has enough salt for me. I'm a salty person. One of these days, if I ever have high blood pressure, I'm going to be very bummed out because I love salt. Okay, so mix that around. We're going to turn this on low so that you have a very low simmer. Slow. And you're going to want to stir this probably every 10 minutes or so that it doesn't stick to the bottom of your pan. I'm going to get a lid. So we're going to cover that up. Turn it on low, like I said. And we're going to simmer this for a good hour, coming back every 10 or so minutes and stirring it. As you can see, it's already starting to bubble because it was on medium heat, so you need to be careful that it doesn't stick or burn. And stirring it regularly will keep that from happening. So we'll be back in a little while. Okay, it's on low, and as you can see, it's boiling, simmering, which is great. It's not sticking. It's just cooking at a nice low simmer, which is what we want. So about every 10 minutes, like I said, you're going to stir it. It needs to cook at least an hour. If you have time to cook it longer, cook it longer. Certainly cannot hurt it. Okay. There you have it. Well, it's been about 20 minutes, and now I'm going to add a little bit of chili powder. And I'm going to just put this in my hand here. I guess that's probably a tablespoon spread out. That's one. And that's two. Okay. Let's stir that up. Now, no, it does not make it taste like chili. A lot of people confuse chili powder with cumin. Cumin is the spice that actually makes your chili taste like chili. Chili powder is just a type of chili. Does not have any heat. Just gives it a little rustic flavor. Does not make it taste like chili. Okay, so it also actually darkens it a little bit as well. So we're just going to keep cooking that. Okay, well, I just stirred my sauce and I had my husband taste it, and I asked him, what is the difference now between the taste before I added the chili powder and what it tastes like now that I've added the chili powder. And the first taste test before the chili powder, he said it was thinner and just a tomato-y, tangy flavor. But now that the chili powder is in there, he said it tastes more bold and full-bodied. So that would be my suggestion, is to use the chili powder, because I think it does add a little bit more robust flavor to your tomato sauce. And you can always add a little sugar if you like sugar in your sauce. I don't normally put sugar in mine. Some people like sugar because of the acidity of tomato sauce. I don't typically have a problem with it, so it's your personal preference. If you like a little sweeter sauce, I would suggest you add maybe a tablespoon of sugar to it, and then taste it, and go from there. Okay, so I'm still cooking. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I make spaghetti. So I guess this is a 2-quart pot, and that's a pound of spaghetti right there. And what I do, and it works really, really well, I haven't seen too many people do it before, you put your spaghetti right in the middle, put your hand on top. Let me lift the camera up just a little bit there, okay? And you let go a little bit at a time, and it spins in a circular fashion into your pot, okay? Then I just kind of bounce it around a little bit. And the reason I do this is because it ends up laying in your pot in a circle, okay? Sorry, I just kicked my camera. And it sits in your pot really well so that when you stir it, you don't have like a big knotted up mess, you know? So I just kind of bounce it in there. And yeah, it's hot, but I can handle heat. Okay, then I just kind of start smashing it in. This lets you kind of make your spaghetti in a smaller pan too, if you don't have a huge, huge pot to cook it in. So I just kind of get it in there real good. So it's in there in a circle. Now, you have to stir your spaghetti. If you don't stir your spaghetti, it'll turn into one big pasty blob. So I usually kind of just try to lift it. And then after I know it's actually soft, then I start to go into the center and flip it over. See what I mean by that? My dad used to always tease me. He'd always say, "Why are you making your spaghetti in such a small pot?" And I guess as a kid learning how to cook, I guess I really didn't like to wash big pots. So I kind of learned how to make a lot of spaghetti in a small area. And as you can see, it's all separated. It's not sticking together like a big pasty ball. It works pretty good. And it all fits. A pound of spaghetti fits in this pot. Obviously, if you had more than a pound, you'd have to use a bigger pot. So it's pretty much all separated. The key here is to always stir your spaghetti until you know that it's separated enough to continue to cook. Because if you don't separate your pasta when you first put it in your pot, it will stick together and you'll get, you know, big chunks that stick together. And I personally don't like to get that when I eat spaghetti. So I just stir it till I know it's all separated and ready to continue to cook. And then I just leave it alone for about 10 minutes and it's pretty al dente. And also one of the testers is to throw it against the wall. If it sticks, it's done. If you throw raw pasta against a wall, it won't stick. It'll just fall on the floor. So I know that's goofy. I don't typically throw my pasta onto my cabinets. But I used to always hear that a long, long time ago. So anyway, that's all separated, ready to just cook now for about 10 minutes. And then we'll serve it up. Okay, it's now finished in the bowl. I put a little Parmesan on mine, and my husband doesn't like it on there, so I'll give a close-up here. Move it over just a hair. There you go. Serve it with a little garlic bread and salad, and you're good to go. I hope you enjoy your sauce. I know my husband does, and have a great day.